Hello everyone, welcome to the channel here of MediaMark Weather. It's great to have you here with me today. We're going to be talking about the tropics getting very active here, especially across the Caribbean. We could be looking at a system that may be trying to form here across the Caribbean, Bahamas, Central America, and the rest of the Caribbean islands. Where will it go? That is the big question, and how strong will it be? Let's get into it. All right, so starting off here with the GFS, and then we'll transition over towards the European model in a few moments here. So here we go. We're starting off with the 25th into the 26th. You can see that moisture is building here across Central America. It's basically the only thing we have to talk about for the most part. We do have a tropical wave out here by the Cape Verde Islands. High pressure starts off very blocky here across the Gulf and Southeast Coast. Now watch what happens here as we go out here in time. As we head into the weekend and into early next week, we can really start to see this moisture come together. Quite a surge all the way up to the Bahamas. Even parts of South Florida might get some showers out of this. But the big story is going to be some heavy rain from Central America, Nicaragua, Honduras, Belize, all the way up to Cancun, over to Jamaica, the Cayman Islands, southern and central Bahamas. And as we head through the 29th into the 30th, we do start to see the GFS close off some sort of low pressure here in the southern Caribbean. And you can get some really powerful storms that come out of this part of the ocean here this time of year. Here it is on the 30th into the 31st. Yeah, we're going to have to watch this one closely. Latest GFS has this a little bit southeast of Jamaica. It's been bouncing back and forth between bringing it up this direction and bringing it over this direction. So this is a trend we're going to have to keep an eye on. Of course, by this point, which is the 31st, you can see high pressure is basically moving off to the northeast, so it's retreating. We do have a trough kicking in, so the timing of that trough is important. But remember, it's hard for these troughs to move into blocking highs like this. So as we head through November 1st here, this thing really starts to intensify into a hurricane. This would be devastating for Haiti and potentially the Dominican Republic and the eastern tip of Cuba. Turks and Caicos, all the Bahamas should be watching this as well. And look at that. Intensifying into a major hurricane potentially with tremendous rainfall all in this area. Look at this. This is not just, a center point of a hurricane here. This is quite a large system. And you can still get the gist here that there is a trough, a stalled frontal boundary here to the north. It's just weakening. So as we head, and here it is, it begins to move from Haiti and the eastern tip of Cuba. And unfortunately, these high-pressure systems to the north, we have one to the east and one to the northwest here. That may actually end up bending the system more towards the west in this scenario. And this would be a very bad scenario. Look at this. We're getting torrential rain all the way back through the Lesser Antilles and Puerto Rico here. But you can see this would be devastating to the Bahamas as well. And then look what starts to happen. It's all about the timing of these high-pressure systems. This high pressure starts to nose its way back down towards Florida, and that starts the system on a loop. So we could be watching this system meander for days on end. This is November 3rd, by the way. Getting back into Cuba and then back up through the Bahamas again. So this is a scenario we'll have to keep a close watch on. There is a tremendous amount of data that needs to be worked out with this system, and it's a very complex storm. And look at this. By this point, it looks like it's trying to become extratropical. And that's usually what can happen this time of year as well. So all persons in the Caribbean up through, even if you're in Florida, the East Coast, the Eastern Gulf, please keep an eye on this system. Hopefully we can, move this out of the picture. But, it is looking more likely that we're going to have a storm forming here in the Central and Western Caribbean, especially the Central Caribbean. So flipping over to the European model here, this is what's going on as we continue to go out here in time on this model. It's a little more tempered down, so to speak, here as we continue through October 26 here. You can see the outline of this stalled frontal boundary, this tropical wave kind of kicking off with moisture from the Pacific and from South America here. And as we continue to go out here in time, you get the idea that this blocking high has a pretty well grip here on the Eastern Gulf and Southeast Coast. So that area seems protected here on our European run as opposed to the GFS. And as we continue through the 29th into the 30th, look what is going on here. So yeah, that high pressure remains in control, suppressing all of this to the south. You get this stalled frontal boundary. And this is where I think something's going to form, somewhere in the central and the western Caribbean. This is the 31st of October into the 1st. European model initiating some sort of very broad, low pressure system here, and then continuing to slowly chug with no particular direction in mind, because obviously you got a massive blocking high here. It is much further to the south on the European model as opposed to the GFS, keeping the system pretty much bottled up here across the Caribbean. We could be looking at some tremendous rainfall totals, which I'm going to go over with in a few minutes here. And before we continue with more weather coverage here, don't forget, if you made it this far in the video and you like it, smash that like button, everyone. It really does help. Question or comment down below. I'd love to read your questions or comments. And don't forget, if you haven't subscribed yet, what are you waiting for? Hit that subscribe bell notification button so you're alerted with all my future weather video updates. Let's continue. And this is why I'm so concerned about the Caribbean. It remains the warmest area from the western MDR through the Caribbean. We're running about 2 to as much as 4 degrees Celsius above average. And if we take a look at the GFS here, you can see, thanks to Tropical Tidbits here, for our dry air and moist air mid-level analysis here. So as we continue to go out here in time, I think this run actually tabulated. There it is. So here is that system forming. Initially, last couple runs, it had the storm coming over towards the eastern Gulf. But this run today has this intensifying into quite a strong hurricane, targeting the island of Hispaniola, which would be devastating, and then intensifying it once again in the Bahamas as a major hurricane, and literally just doing loops for days here off the Florida coast. So this is going to be one to really watch in these areas. We need to keep a very close watch on this. If you're along the East Coast, don't let your guard down just yet. And here's our European run. Let's see how far we can go out with this one as we continue in time here. Monday, October 28th, 29th, 30th. Look at this. Yeah, you see what's happening here. On the European model, the dry air is winning out across Florida. Here's that stalled out frontal boundary. Lots of tropical moisture surging to the north and to the east here as we head through November 1st. And European still hinting at something trying to develop here right across the central and the western Caribbean. We'll see if anything comes out of this, but it looks like it's really starting to materialize. European keeps the Gulf and southeast coast pretty well blocked off with a blocking high here. If you want to get a good idea of the wind shear here, the Gulf, southeast coast, European model keeps the wind shear, even out by the Cape Verde Islands, very prominent here. But look at here into the Caribbean. There's virtually no wind shear to speak of, and that's why I really think something's going to develop in the Caribbean. Whether it exits the Caribbean, tries to head for the Gulf, or the Central Atlantic remains to be seen, but I think for the most part it's going to be mainly confined to the Caribbean because that's where the conditions are most hospitable here, and you can see that wind shear staying just to the north of Hispaniola and Puerto Rico through November 3rd here. And our rainfall here across the Caribbean and Central America really starts to pick up this weekend from Nicaragua, Honduras, Belize here, even inland to Guatemala here. Cancun remains pretty dry up here through this forecast period, but then as we get into next week, look at this. This is Monday through Friday next week. Look at this surge of tropical moisture, even over towards Hispaniola, the Turks, the Caicos, Jamaica, the Cayman Islands. We're looking at amounts that could be exceeding 100 to as much as 175 millimeters of rainfall here. You know, that's going to get us up towards 4 to 7-inch plus amounts. And going to the Eastern Caribbean here, what is going on with this? Well, we got that tropical wave moving through Trinidad and Tobago over the next couple days here into the weekend. They'll pick up about 40 to 60 millimeters on average, about a half to 3/4 of an inch. But look at this. This is where things are going to come together. We got like a frontal boundary up here, tropical wave moisture meeting up Dominican Republic, Haiti, Puerto Rico. We could be looking at 100 to 250 millimeters of rainfall here in some of these areas. That's easily 4 to 8 inch plus. Puerto Rico as well. Could be right around that 4 to 7 inch range in some of these locations, looking very bad. All right, and the tropics out here in the Western Pacific, we have Trami. It is back to being a tropical storm, and this storm is going to be really pesky, continuing to inundate the northern Philippines with life-threatening flooding. And look at this. As we go through the 26th into the 27th, this wants to come and basically deluge central and northern parts of Vietnam. And then, unfortunately, it's going to do a circle because the steering currents are pretty much non-existent. And of course, we have this next potential system that could become a typhoon, stronger than Trami here. This system starts to get pulled to the east, and unfortunately, it looks like it's going to come back towards the northern Philippines sometime in the first part of November here. But look at this. We're looking at a very strong potential typhoon here. The only good news is it does try to recurve initially. However, this run of the European model takes this low pressure way out to the northeast. This could potentially be bad for Japan here. Korea and China remain very dry through this forecast period. But let's just go on a few more frames here. You can see Trami is basically going to be bearing down on the Philippines again as a weak tropical storm. And then we could be looking at a major typhoon here into early November bearing down on Japan. And it's going to be really close, so stay tuned for this. This could be really gusty, and your fall foliage that's just starting to turn in many areas could get quite messed up here as well. So Trami is going to become a major problem for the Philippines and Vietnam here. And then look at it heads back towards Vietnam towards November 2nd. So it's just going to skip around here. There's no steering currents to knock this thing out like our potential Japanese typhoon here. And if we come over here, we're looking at Category 5, 160 mile per hour wind, sustained, and gust to 195. Thankfully, this system is going to remain a fish storm. One thing to note, though, wave action is going to be intense from Southern California down to the southern tip of Baja California here. This system's going to produce some mega waves, and there may be a few spritzels of showers that move to the east by the 28th, but most of it will be fizzled out by then. Look at Category 5 Christie out here. Thanks to Tropical Tidbits for this satellite analysis. Look at this thing. This is a perfect system, perfectly symmetrical. Thankfully, it is a fish storm. And models keep this up towards 160 miles per hour, close to 135 to 140 knots here, and then trail it off as it heads off into cooler water. And looking here at our precipitation amounts with our tropical system there going across the South China Sea, pulling away from the Philippines, still continued rain. Look at that towards Vietnam, though. We could see upwards of 400 millimeters. We're getting up towards feet of rain there, 1 to 2 feet plus, locally higher. Look at Japan as well. Let's get that out of the way as we continue. Look at South Korea is pretty much dry as a bone, but look at the Japanese islands here, picking up close to 150 to 250 millimeters of rainfall. We're looking easily on the order of 5 to 12 inches. And I was going to put in my fall foliage photos that I've snapped off the last 5 or 6 days. Unfortunately, they are a new format with that new camera I got, CR3 format. So I got to find a way to open those up. So hopefully in the next couple videos, I can get some of those out. All right, so looking at our feature radar here, there's not a whole lot to talk about here in the east. I know a lot of you need the rain here from parts of the East Coast up the Mid-Atlantic into the Northeast. We do try to get a system moving in. Here's Friday at 9 a.m. Some showers and a few embedded thunder showers moving through. But look how quickly it just weakens. It doesn't even make it to Cleveland here. Maybe a few spritzels southward here towards Marietta. These areas just south, way to the south here of Canton. Towards Wheeling, West Virginia, just southwest of Pittsburgh. But we're not looking at much. We do try to get redevelopment here towards just after the 5 p.m. rush hour, right around 6 p.m. Watch this area. We might have some showers and a few embedded thunder showers kick up, but most areas will remain dry. And this is a gusty front. It's mostly dry. Once again, unfortunately for the Northeast and Mid-Atlantic, you definitely need the moisture. But look at this. For Saturday, we may kick off a few lake enhanced streamers. Picking up where our HRRR future radar left off here. As we go into the rest of your week into the weekend here, high pressure is pretty well dominant here. I don't have a whole lot to talk about here other than we will see a gusty front move through the northeast Friday night and Saturday, obviously. But high pressure quickly builds in behind it. You know, if you want to enjoy that fall foliage, that's beautiful fall weather to do it. There's that high pressure. This is through November 1st. This high does not want to go anywhere. Look at these systems. They have to go up and over this ridge, and that is really bad news here. Actually, I should circle further to the north because you people down here do not need that kind of rain. You need some dry, but way up here, especially this area. Let's go back a little bit further to the west here. These areas really need the rain over here. Not Western North Carolina. These areas down and through here, you do not need the rain. But further to the north and to the east, many of you have not seen a drop of rain through October at all. And this is probably one of the driest Octobers ever recorded for many areas. Wildfire concern is increasing. And look at this, through November 3rd and to the 4th, we try to get a frontal boundary to move east here, another one, but look at this. This stubborn high does not want to go anywhere. However, this is the same high on the European model that is suppressing our tropical system here across the Caribbean. And precipitation amounts here, we are looking pretty quiet back here across the east, just continued dry. A little bit off the Carolina coast and the East Florida coast there, and the Midwest and the plains. And then we get into later next week, towards November 1st. That's when the pattern gets a little more active, but not so much for the East Coast here. Look at this. We just remain dry. It's mainly up through the Midwest, parts of the Great Lakes, where we'll see solid rainfall amounts of 1 inch to as much as 4+ inches. And for our Canadian weather outlook here, with the exception for this low winding up across Quebec and Ontario, kicking out to the east here, very light precipitation amounts. Another low pressure moving through in Manitoba, kicking out a really nice late weekend into early next week. But look at this. We do get some chances of rainfall once again here in southern Quebec and Ontario through the 30th here, so into the middle of next week. We do get a massive 970 millibar low pressure system blasting into British Columbia here. So that's something we're going to have to keep a close watch on. And as we go through the 31st into the 1st of November, it remains stormy here in British Columbia and southern Ontario and Quebec. Some very beneficial rains trying to work their way in here. Although I can't get it too far east here because of those high pressure systems at weekends. And then another big blasting low moves right up through Ontario. Another system moving here onto British Columbia. So remaining very active here, especially in these two regions right here. And Canadian rainfall and precipitation here, it's mainly the west coast and northern Ontario and Quebec until we get into the 1st of November. Look at that. Yeah. Ontario and Quebec will be picking up some beneficial rains, even further south, you know, towards 50, maybe 70 millimeters, but most of it will be up here in the central and northern sections. Out here on the west coast, we could be looking at 150 to 200 millimeters, you know, looking on the order of 4 to 6 inches. So these areas likely about 1.5 inches, close to 2.5 inches back east here. And look at this, clipping Newfoundland here. We could get up towards 100+ millimeters. And before we continue with more weather, check out these awesome, amazing maps that you won't find anywhere else.
I am proud to announce that I am now an affiliate with Trilogy Maps. TrilogyMaps.com, bringing you the most digital, customizable maps found nowhere else on the internet. These maps are simply stunning. It's an advanced layering system that makes these maps great for making forecast maps with ease or any other maps that you would like to display important information on. The resolution on these maps is simply amazing. From the detail of everything here in the States, and you can also create stunning digital professional layered maps from also across the entire world. And don't forget, in checkout, the discount code option, use my code MediaMark, hit apply, and you will get 20% off your order. So if you want the most professional, customizable, and affordable weather maps found nowhere else on the internet, look no further than TrilogyMaps.com. Link in the description down below along with your discount code.
And your Temperature outlook here. Look at how warm it is back east here, even up to the 70s here in parts of the southern Ohio Valley. Eastern Great Lakes, 60s. We'll break it out, but look at that. Saturday, we see another surge. That wind is going to be knocking the fall foliage off the trees, unfortunately. Cooling down into the 50s, but it is fall. You know, this is much more fall-like as opposed to the rest of the country where it's summer-like out here and along the Gulf Coast. Pacific Northwest, pretty cool as well, just like the Northeast. Into the 50s. And look at this. As we head through Monday, October 28th here, you can see we got this super heat dome here in the central states holding on to some fall-like 40s, 50s, and a few 60s here into parts of the eastern Great Lakes, Ohio Valley. And then as we head towards Tuesday, October 29th, that warmth shifts to the east. Look at the 70s, mid to upper 70s in parts of Ohio, western New York, western Pennsylvania. And that surges to the east. Look at this. Wednesday, October 30th, we have 70s all the way up to New York State. Extended forecast from hometown viewers, Binghamton, Scranton, Upper Susquehanna, River Valley of New York and Pennsylvania. As we get into Friday, we're going to start off really cold. You know, lows in the upper 20s, near 30, but we'll quickly warm to near 60 in the afternoon. We get a chance of showers Friday night, but look at this Saturday. Winds are going to be gusty and howling. Mid-50s, but it'll feel a lot cooler. Those winds will be 20, 30 miles an hour. And then look at that Sunday cooling down to near 50. And then for the new week, we're just feeling a lot more fall-like here. As always, thank you for joining me for this edition of Media Mark's Weather. Also, don't forget to join me on Facebook at Media Mark, also Weather Northeastern, also Twitter at Weather Eastern. Don't forget it's MediaMark.com, and don't forget, if you want to send me a coffee, there is a link, Super Thanks. You can smash that Super Thanks button or my PayPal link in the description down below. You can buy me a cup of coffee. Thanks, everyone. Share that video. Subscribe if you haven't. Smash that like button.